Here's Brody Brazil.
More of a veteran presence, I think, is definitely a theme for this team. It's something they've absolutely needed each of the last 2 years. And you could pick and choose different spots here. Sometimes I do feel like their blue line in the last 2 seasons of no playoffs, I feel like they've been fairly established. There have been times with injuries and respective this and that. Maybe they're a defenseman, like a real solid defenseman shy of having a nice, six-man core. But I feel like the forwards are the areas where San Jose has been a little bit shorthanded in the last 2 seasons. And on the third line, on the fourth line, and what you're looking for this team with a veteran presence and with additions like Cogliano and Bonino is consistent efforts, known commodities. It's right there on your screen. You want to know on a nightly basis what you're going to get from, a Bonino at third line center and a Cogliano in those roles, or quite honestly, any other player that you bring up and put in these situations. The same would hold true for William Eklund. Oh, and we'll talk about him in just a second too. But this is an area that has not been this way for the Sharks the last 2 years because there have been so many Barracuda players on this team getting great opportunities, getting great looks. But I don't, honestly, with the exception of Knyzhov and John Leonard, Barabanov, and I've named a few, don't get me wrong, but there haven't been many players who have come up, made a first splash, made a first impression, hung on to it, and latched. The NHL is a lot like every other sport in that it's hard to break in. It's hard. But it is way harder to stay doing what you're doing, keep that role, win that role, and stay there. And that's something I think we've witnessed with Shark players in the last handful of years. There just have not been enough that come up, like I said, make the impact, but also persist. And you know that they're not going back. They're not going back to the AHL or anywhere else. And so that has been, and it goes twofold, right? Because the Sharks did see last year as an opportunity to test young players, to give them more opportunities so that a year like this comes around, a normal 82 games, and hey, you've got even more guys who, when they come up, it's not a big a deal anymore. But it's also important to not bring players up too often and too early. They get overexposed, they lose their confidence. I said this before, it's almost like barbecuing something. Like sometimes if you pull the meat off the grill too early, it's not ready. It's got to go back on the grill a little bit. And you wouldn't want to eat it if it's not ready. And kind of the same goes with athletes and the minor leagues versus the ultimate professional league. So they need more known commodities, again, especially up front. I think those 2 additions I talked about are greatly going to improve that. But I also think when you want more of a veteran presence, you really need to rely on your veterans of this team. I'm talking about Logan. I'm talking about Bernsey, Carlson, Vlasic, Hurdle, Timo Meier. He's a young man still, but let's call him a veteran at this point. He's been through this song and dance several times over now. He's seen, several rounds of the playoffs. He knows what this is all about. So I don't think it's fair to say, well, you don't want to see less young guys getting chances. In a perfect world, those chances are harder to come by. But at the same respect, they're harder to come by because you pretty much know what you're going to get from the guys who have been around the block a few times. So I want to make that very clear that a bigger veteran presence is going to help this team, but that means you need more from your veterans, and you also need players that either are young and come in and establish like veterans, or maybe you need to go out and acquire more veteran players. That to me has definitely been a theme. And why do I say all this? You just need to know what you're going to get on a regular basis. What kind of output, what kind of results are you going to get from your players?